University of Namibia Press will be hosting a pre-launch author presentation and discussion of the forthcoming book titled The Bushman Myth Revisited, Genocide, Dispossession and Road to Severity by Robert Gothon on the 15th of May 2025. Now, to enlighten us more, I'm joined by the author of the book, Robert Gothon, as well as UNAM Press publisher, Naitikile Izienda, in the studio this morning. Good morning to both of you, and thank you so much for making time to speak to us.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning. Yes, perhaps, Madam Naitikile, let me start with you. This book, produced by the University of Namibia, talk to us about from a perspective of the University of Namibia being a publisher.
I think for the University of Namibia Press, we've been very fortunate to have Rob, who is a long-standing friend of the press, bring this publication to us. It's very important for UNAM Press that we publish books about Namibia and that these books are accessible to the Namibian community. Our mandate is to publish academic books, scholarly texts, and make sure that we are able to disseminate them where the books are based, so within Namibia.
Brilliant. Now, being an author, this is quite an interesting book. I mean, titled The Bushman Myth Revisited, Genocide, Dispossession and Road to Civility. It's quite an interesting topic. We are about to, for the first time, commemorate Genocide Day on the 28th of May 2025. What inspired you to write this book? And is this book relatable to the Genocide Day that will be commemorated on the 20th? Is there some sort of link?
Well, it's interesting. Genocide, well, let me tell you how I got involved in this. When I was growing up in Keetmanshoop, we'd go on holidays to Lüderitz. This is in the 50s, late 50s. As you can see, I'm quite old. And one of the images which I saw in the Lüderitzbucht Museum was a picture of two bushmen hanging on a tree. And I thought, hey, this is interesting because at the same time with The Gods Must Be Crazy, we've got this myth of the Bushmen as being these happy hunter-gatherers living in the pristine wilderness of the Kalahari. And so I was trying to resolve this contradiction between these hanging Bushmen and this image which we have of the Bushmen. And so I started doing research on it, and I was shocked to learn that this photograph of the Bushman hanging was actually photographed in Keetmanshoop. So I started doing research, historical research, trying to resolve this contradiction. And I found that of the various people in Namibia, perhaps the most brutalized and victimized people have been the San or the Bushmen. Especially after the Herero Nama genocide, there was a tremendous effort to get rid of Bushmen. In fact, when the South Africans invaded German Southwest Africa, there was so much resistance by Bushmen that the Germans had to send a special detachment of 60 troops, even though they were outgunned and outmanned by the South Africans, to Grootfontein to deal with Bushman depredations. But of course, if you look at it from a Bushman perspective, it's settler depredations that they're fighting. And one of the first orders which the military magistrate in Grootfontein gave in 1915 was this practice of Bushman hunting must cease forthwith, farmers must not do it. And so I thought, wow, this is interesting. And what happened was, after the Nama Herero genocide, of course, German settlers, the government tried to encourage German settlers to come to Namibia, basically to pacify the indigenous population. And one of the major areas of settlement was Grootfontein, because they'd built a railway line there, and there were small holdings and agriculture. So there was a massive intake of German settlers. In fact, the number of farms in Grootfontein went from 25 in 1903 to 175 in 1913. In 1911, the German government issued a Verordnung saying that Bushmen can be shot on sight if they are allegedly resisting arrest. And so you had, between 1911 and 1913, you had over 400 anti-Bushman patrols, which covered over 60,000 kilometers hunting Bushmen. And you read the mission accounts, and it's all about these patrols going out into the Omaheke and shooting Bushmen. So what was interesting about that is, so the South Africans take over in 1915, and settlers continue hunting Bushmen, and they brag about it to the military authorities. So what I've found is that between 1913, when they had a census, and 1923, this sort of period, the estimates of the number of Bushmen decreased from between 9 and 12,000 to 3,000, which is a tremendous figure, which is a sort of silent genocide. There were no voices of protest or anything like that. The missionaries said, we've got to keep quiet about this for a variety of reasons. And so it was a silent genocide, and I think racism has got a lot to do with why we ignore it.
Why we ignore it. Indeed, quite a good history in terms of recollection that, the issue of genocide is bigger than the issue of the Nama and the Herero genocide, so much that's unfolding.
Other groups completely.
Indeed. Madam Naitikile, let's talk about who people might be interested. Robert is publishing with you now. I mean, are there specific criteria on who is entitled to publish with the University of Namibia? What are those requirements?
At UNAM Press, our mandate is to publish scholarly academic books on Namibia and the Southern African region. So we have authors from all over the world. Our priority is that your work must be on Namibia, because we're trying to build a knowledge base and sort of collect information on Namibia that is based and from the country, from inside the country. So that is our main criteria, is that your subject matter must be on Namibia or the wider Southern African region.
Now, Robert, in terms of producing this book, what was the most challenging part?
Sorry?
What was the most challenging part in terms of producing this book?
That's it. Just writing, meeting people, talking to them. It's tough, because if you find history, one of the things is it's difficult to interview people about history, because memories can play multiple roles. They can give you different perspectives. One of the things about history which I found very interesting is that what is history about? History is about hierarchy. We got there first. We did this before you. With the San or the Bushmen, you don't have that. Their history is not vertical, but rather horizontal. They can talk about a lot of near contemporary events with an incredible wide range. So sort of getting the Bushman voice became very difficult.
Very difficult. We know that the Bushmen have been amongst the most marginalized groups in Namibia over the years. Does this book address some of the challenges they face and possible solutions that might be there for them?
I'm just a scholar. Believe me, I've pondered that, and I don't know the solution, and it's not for me to say, but I think you've got to empower them. That's the most important thing. I mean, how do you empower them? There have been a lot of efforts to do that, but I still think there's a lot of underlying racism in this country towards them. I think that's a very real issue, which as Namibians we have to confront, is the issue of racism. And it's not just whites against blacks, it's blacks against Bushmen as well. I think we need an educational policy, but the key is we've got to find out how to empower the Bushmen. I mean, you can change the label whether they San or Bushmen, but unless you empower them, that label becomes negative. And so we've got to try and empower them.
Indeed. As we wrap up our conversation this morning, let's talk about the details regarding the pre-launch. Where is it taking place? We did mention that's on the 15th. What time is it starting? Is the general public available to attend this launch, or specifically are you looking at a specific clientele?
So as you mentioned, this event is a pre-launch. We've taken the opportunity to have an audience, have readers engage with the author while he's in town. So we'll start off the event with a presentation from the author about the book, which will lead, I think, into a lively discussion, thought-provoking, interactive. The public is welcome. The event, as you mentioned, is taking place tomorrow, Thursday, 15th of May. We would like everyone, all participants, all the general public to arrive from 5:30. And so we'll start at 6 o'clock. It's taking place at the Namibia Scientific Society, which is in Robert Mugabe Avenue. And everybody is welcome. We would love everybody who is interested in history, Namibian history, all the related subject matters to please join us.
Well, thank you.
And I'm looking forward to learning more from people. I mean, history is a continuous dialogue, and we need to promote that and listen to each other.
It never ends.
Looking forward to it.
It never ends. There's always a new angle to the story. Well, thank you so much, and we wish you all the best with the pre-launch tomorrow.
Thank you so
very
much.
Okay. Now, that was Robert Gordon, who's an author, as well as Naitikile Izienda, who's a UNAM Press publisher, talking to us about, that is the pre-launch of the book, author, presentation, and discussion of the forthcoming book titled The Bushman Myth Revisited, Genocide, Dispossession, and Road to Civility by Robert Gordon. It is taking place tomorrow, which is the 15th of May, 2025. Namibia Scientific Society from 16:30. Ideally, you should have arrived, and commencing at 6. It's in Robert Mugabe Avenue, should you wish to attend. All members of the public are indeed welcome.